Ladies and gentlemen, joining us as Master of Ceremonies for this evening, Ms. Carol Marine. Marine is currently the co-director of the DePaul University Center for Journalism, Integrity, and Excellence. Until November 2020, she was a political editor at NBC5 News in Chicago and a regular interviewer for public broadcasting on WTTW's Chicago Tonight. We are thrilled to have her with us this evening. Please join me in welcoming Carol Marine.
As the nuns in my Catholic grammar school used to say, please be seated. Good evening to all of you. It is just lovely to be here. And we're going to get right down to business. So please join me in welcoming tonight's recipient of the 17th Annual Lincoln Leadership Prize, Jon Meacham. The Lincoln Presidential Foundation is delighted to gather us this evening to recognize Jon's exceptional contributions to the historical canon and public understanding of American political leadership and democracy. Nothing we don't exactly need right now. Joining us to present the Lincoln Leadership Prize to her friend Jon Meacham is MSNBC anchor Stephanie Ruhle. Stephanie, welcome. We are also pleased to welcome the 2024 recipient of the Wayne Whalen Charity for All Award, Edward J. Wehmer Sr. Ed is the executive chairman of the board and founder of Wintrust. We honor him tonight for his dedication to civic leadership and to improving the lives and communities throughout the Chicago area. Presenting the award to Ed Wehmer is Lincoln Presidential Foundation's newly elected chair of the board and vice chair at Ariel Investments, Charles Brobrinskoy. I'm honored to be your MC tonight, and on behalf of our hosts, the Lincoln Presidential Foundation, they and I welcome all of you, our generous guests, and thank you for all that you do for this organization on this, the 17th Annual Lincoln Leadership Prize dinner. And now, we welcome Lincoln Presidential Foundation's president and CEO, Aaron Carlson Mast. Aaron?
Thank you, Carol. Good evening, Jon, Ed, and distinguished guests. On behalf of our board, staff, and event co-chairs, it's an honor to welcome you. This is a pivotal year for democracy worldwide. More voters will head to the polls than ever before in history. That's all the more remarkable when we consider that President Lincoln led our fractured nation at a time when our experiment in self-governance was the exception, not the rule. For this experiment to survive and thrive, we believe the world needs leaders who are principled, intellectually curious, and honest, traits embodied by Lincoln and both individuals we honor tonight. Like Lincoln, we also believe universal education is essential to our freedom and a flourishing democracy. Education is at the heart of our mission. As the only national foundation focused on sharing the story of Abraham Lincoln's life, legacy, and leadership with all people. This is at the core of the work we do daily as an organization and the collective impact we pursue with our partners, some of whom are here with us tonight. We are 2 years into our successful partnership with the National Park Service. Our good friend Tim Good, superintendent of Lincoln Home National Historic Site, is here. Tim, please raise your hand. This February, we celebrated the grand opening of our new exhibit, Lincoln Springfield, featuring special remarks from Senator Durbin. Together, we with Lincoln Home created an exhibit highlighting the stories of 6 of Lincoln's neighbors whose diverse life experiences illustrate the promise and the premise of America. It is their first core exhibit in 20 years and the first ever for a youth audience. And it's been, by all accounts, a smash hit with the tens of thousands of students, mostly middle schoolers, visiting from across the state. I have middle schoolers myself. They're a tough audience, so it's really winning when we're doing an exhibit that speaks to them. And it's an exhibit and a success made possible thanks to our generous supporters and a leadership gift from the Nelson Family Foundation. Now we're working with Lincoln Home to create an exhibit on Julius Rosenwald, whose boyhood home is right there within the park. When completed, the Rosenwald exhibit will be the first core exhibit in the first structure named for a Jewish American in any National Park Service unit. And for context, there are over 400 units nationwide, and this is the first. And it's all thanks to generous supporters like you and support from the National Park Foundation. The Lincoln and Rosenwald stories reveal how leaders can work across communities and sectors to improve freedom, justice, and equal opportunity. Thanks to generous contributions to our Wayne Whalen Memorial Fund, including lead support from Skadden, we expanded our webinars, book talks, and partnered on symposia in multiple states, including the Lincoln Forum's annual Gettysburg Symposium. And our good friend and Lincoln Forum Chairman Harold Holzer is here with us tonight. Harold, please raise your hand. In recent decades, history and civics education has been greatly challenged and deprioritized. Our foundation is committed to being part of the solution by creating high-quality content and helping to lead national efforts. For example, we're spearheading a new project for America's 250th anniversary in 2026. We're planning a new multi-site program, including a traveling exhibit and documentary films about Abraham Lincoln and the American experiment. We're also gaining tremendous traction on our programs. Our first documentary series, Warning Signs, Lincoln's Response to Rising Tensions in the 1850s, has received 4 awards, including an Emmy in the fall. Our companion curriculum was named an exemplar project by Educating for American Democracy. And on the heels of that success, thanks to a lead gift from Iron Mountain, our foundation created and released a second series, Fortifying Our Democracy, Lincoln's Lyceum Address, in October, and dropped companion learning resources for educators during National Civic Learning Week. Fortifying Our Democracy received its first 2 awards this month, and we're delighted to share the trailer with you this evening. Go ahead and roll.
The 1830s were a very dynamic time.
This is the time when slavery enters in a big way into the national political arena.
It was a very violent period. Mob violence was a real problem. Lynchings, murders. It's a brutal, difficult time. Lots of people are concerned about whether or not this American experiment is going to survive.
Alexis de Tocqueville visits the United States in 1831 and writes a glowing book, Democracy in America. Some say the greatest book ever written about the United States, as well as the greatest book written about democracy. And yet, it's a period of considerable upheaval related to the rule of law. And that's, I think, what drew Lincoln to the Lyceum Address on that historic night in January of 1838.
The Lyceum Address invites us into the mind of a younger Lincoln already thinking about the major issues of his time.
Justice for all, irrespective of their background. That is what the Lyceum contributes like no other Lincoln speech. It is a profoundly prophetic speech. It's what we make of it, rather than what was made of it at the time, that I think is important.
Each of these documentary series, by the way, is less than 30 minutes total runtime, making them ideal for watching and sharing when you can spare a moment. You can find them on our website and our YouTube channel, and I'm happy to announce that C-SPAN will be airing both of our series to millions of viewers next month. We've witnessed firsthand the power of historical documentaries to open viewers to new perspectives, and this summer, thanks to a lead grant from the Better Angel Society in DC, we're bringing that impact to young creators, launching a new historical documentary mentorship program for young people, which we're calling the Latest Generation Film Contest. Together, we can support the next generation of historical documentary filmmakers. Lastly, at each of your places is a bookmark featuring a quote from Abraham Lincoln's second inaugural address. It pairs well with Jon Meacham's award-winning book on Lincoln, And There Was Light, which is our gift to you this evening. It also inspired the award we are presenting to Ed tonight. It's a sentiment that can serve as both challenge and inspiration to all of us today. On the reverse, you'll see an invitation and a link to give. Your support makes our work and our impact possible. Please join us in making the essential work of history possible now and for future generations. Thank you again for your support and friendship as we come together this evening to honor Jon Meacham and Ed Wehmer. I'd now like to welcome Satch Picori to the podium for the passing of the gavel.
You know, before I make my remarks, I just want everybody to know that the success of the organization is this young lady right here, Erin Mass. We should give her a hand for all the good work she did. That wasn't part of the script tonight. I just thought you needed to be recognized. Good evening to our honorees, Jon Meacham, Ed Wehmer, and to you, our generous guests. As Erin noted, this past year has been a special time in our foundation's history for many reasons. It has been an honor to serve as the foundation's chair during a time of transformative change, of new partnerships like the National Park Service at the Lincoln Home, and the new award-winning programming. I'm delighted to join the ranks of fellow Chair Emeriti here tonight, Governor Edgar and Ray McCaskey. Our foundation's Chair Emeriti stay involved, and I look forward to doing the same. One of my first duties as Chair Emeritus is to pass the gavel to my successor, Mr. Charles Bobrinskoy. Many of you know and have worked with Charlie during his past 20 years at Ariel Investments, where he currently serves as Vice Chairman and head of the investment group. Charlie also actively serves the Chicago community, and in addition to serving on our foundation board since 2019, he also sits on the corporate boards of State Farm, the Big Shoulders Fund, and the Chicago Club. He's a frequent guest on CNBC, and he also teaches monthly investing classes at 2 Chicago inner-city schools. It gives me great pleasure to pass the chair's gavel to someone so ready to serve. Please join me in welcoming our new board chair, Charles Bobrinskoy, to the stage, better known as Charlie.
Thank you, Seth.
We have a
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you, Seth.
You bet.
Thank you, Satch, and thank you for your service. I'm going to be very brief. After dinner, I'm going to be presenting a very important award, and I am not going to divulge who that recipient of that award is because we've kept this a closely guarded secret for the last 6 months, and more importantly, I wrote a speech in which I build up the tension to who the award winner is. And I know that there may be something on your seat that gives up the answer to who the recipient is, but I need you to pretend at least that you don't know the recipient, at least for another 20 minutes. Satch, congratulations on your term as chairman of the board. This has been a period of remarkable change. We are very excited about the future. You're going to learn more about it. So enjoy your dinner. Carol, you got last remarks, and then enjoy your dinner, and I will see you in about 15 minutes. Thank you for coming tonight.
So as the tension builds, you need your strength. So we're going to begin dinner, and we will resume after. We're just about to begin. And as we move into the rest of the program, can we just pause for 1 minute for for a round of applause for the fabulous staff of the Four Seasons. Join me, please, in welcoming back to the podium Foundation Board Chair Charles Babrinskoy. Charlie?
Thank you, Carol. All right, I've been sitting here talking to some guy. I have no idea why he's here, but we're going to go ahead and start. So in 2022, all of us in Chicago lost one of the great leaders of the civic community in Wayne Whalen. We at the Lincoln Presidential Foundation decided to honor our former board chair by renaming the annual award that we give to a leader of the Chicago civic community who's gone above and beyond our expectations. And we renamed the award the Wayne Whalen Charity for All Award, which combines Wayne's commitment to community with the charitable spirit of Abraham Lincoln's second inaugural address. So the new award is the Wayne Whalen Charity for All Award. This year's award recipient grew up in Chicago and attended Loyola Academy. He, after college, spent 7 years as a CPA. And then the legend is that he gathered a group of his friends around a card table stocked only with beer and cigars, and laid out a plan for the creation of what they predicted would become known as Chicago's Bank. And it was at that card table, which really should be in the Smithsonian, that card table should be somewhere on display, that they put together the plan that turned into Wintrust Financial. But it's not for our honoree's success in business that we are giving him this award tonight. It is for his community leadership. He has led the boards of Northwestern Memorial and Lurie Hospital. He has been a leader and chairman at Loyola Academy, Misericordia, Mercy Hub for boys and girls. And when you read that list, you think he's associated with the largest, the most prestigious institutions in Chicago. Our honoree is not afraid of getting his hands dirty. When the Archdiocese of Chicago ran into financial trouble about 10 years ago, they turned to our honoree tonight, and he became the person who provided financial and strategic leadership to the Archdiocese, a leadership position that he continues to in this day. Our honoree and his wife, Dorothy, there are lots of clues here onto who our honoree is, have been an amazing team, both in the community and in raising 6 children and 9 grandchildren. In our house, we refer to our honoree with his most important title, and that is Chris Wehmer's dad. So please join me in celebrating the 2024 recipient of the Wayne Whalen Charity for All Award, Edward J. Wehmer. So I hand you this, and you and I shake hands for the cameras. Right there.
Thank you.
We'll put this down here.
Oh. I hate this walker I gotta walk with. They have this disease called primary progressive freezing of gait, which is a Parkinson's. I don't have Parkinson's. Derivative of Parkinson's, but my lovely wife bought me a machine, allows me to play golf, and life is okay then. I get settled here. Hang on. Spencer's killing me, I know. I couldn't decide whether to do a long speech or Gettysburg Address. You got the Gettysburg Address, by the way. When honored to accept this award, I figured once I became chairman, nights like these would be few and far between, but really humbled me tonight with this wonderful award. Charlie, thanks for that introduction. Congratulations on your election to the chairman of the foundation. You also have a new grandchild, right? Yeah. Your son Bobo had elbow, right? Ellie, congratulations. Got a lot going on, but thanks again. The thing about Charity for All Award and what it means to receive this Lincoln Presidential Foundation, keep wondering, what would Abe Lincoln think about what's going on today? I think he is disappointed to see how divided we are as it worked. I think he would be disappointed to see how divided we are. He worked tirelessly to unify the nation through his ideals and leadership. I always look to war heroes and presidents of the past when we need leadership advice. It'd be nice if our kids and our grandkids could say the same about today's leaders. I'm optimistic we're heading in the right direction, though, because of organizations like this and those of us in this room tonight. As business leaders and community members, we should remember to do as Lincoln would: find common ground and lead with compassion. That's hard, right? We see this day in and day out of Wintrust. Our philanthropic focus is at the heart of everything we do. Community members at our core, our people generally are about improving lives. Our motto is we give a hand up, not a handout. We'll help anybody who needs a hand up, but we don't just give money out. Personally, this has always been what I've been most proud of. Our employees get involved at their ground level to really make an impact on their communities. Though we do live in a time right now, civil and political unrest, we can get back to the heart of what this award really represents, exemplifying civic leadership, generosity of spirit, commitment to the ideals of the nation, and hold our leaders accountable to do the same. We're back to be the nation Lincoln would be proud of. Let's just take a note from Abe and like what he said. The analysis is done and charity for all. Thank you again for this honor. It's been great to be with you tonight. Thanks very much. Hi, Carol. How are you? Not bad. I knew it.
Congratulations, Ed, on your life, on your work, and your inspiration for all of us. And now, coming to the podium, Foundation Board member and chair of the Lincoln Leadership Prize Committee, Carrie Heitman.
Congratulations, Ed. Thank you, Carol. This is certainly an evening to remember. And we're so thrilled to have you with us this evening as we honor our 17th recipient of the Lincoln Leadership Prize, Jon Meacham. I might be one of the only people in this room who's been to all 17 of these, by the way. Anyone? Raise your hand if you've been to all 17. There are a few others, I guess. Shows my age. Anyway, on behalf of the Lincoln Presidential Foundation Board of Directors, the Lincoln Leadership Prize Committee, and my fellow event co-chairs for tonight's event, welcome and thank you all for being here. I'd now like to recognize the event co-chairs for their philanthropic spirit and commitment to the good work our foundation carries out in Abraham Lincoln's name. Please hold your applause till I've read all the names. Charles and Marianne Babrinskoy, GCM Grosvenor, John L. Now III, Wintrust, BMO, the Chicago Cubs, Hobson Lucas Family Foundation, Judy and Ray McCaskey, Motorola Solutions, Inc., Reputation Partners, LLC, Patrick G. and Shirley W. Ryan, Skadden Arps, Slate, Meager and Flom. So please join me in thanking all of these great sponsors. So, to those of you who have already supported the event, we really thank you and really appreciate it. Your generosity drives our work. As an independent 501c3 nonprofit, the Lincoln Presidential Foundation relies on supporters like you for the resources necessary to develop new, creative projects that give all people new access and insights into the legacy of our 16th president. Well, for those of you who have not yet donated, we hope you will take this opportunity to do so. So Aaron noted earlier there's a bookmark at your seat. There's a nice quote on one side, but now turn it over to the QR code that links directly to the donation page. Now more than ever, our award-winning work in public history is essential to the health of our nation. Abraham Lincoln's legacy is far-reaching, and the need for education, preservation, and history are greater than ever. Simply put, your support is essential. Thank you again.
Thank you, Carrie. The Lincoln Leadership Prize, established in 2006, recognizes outstanding leaders in diverse fields. In honoring leaders of meritorious quality, the foundation celebrates Lincoln's far-reaching legacy of leadership. The prize is awarded to exceptional individuals for a lifetime of service in the Lincoln tradition, who accept the responsibilities imposed by history, and I love this line, and demanded by conscience. Recipients of the prize receive an exact replica of the right hand of President Lincoln, and it was created by an American sculptor named Leonard Voigt in the spring of 1860. This is the 17th time that the Lincoln Leadership Prize has been presented. Past recipients include Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Captain James Lovell, Tim Russert, Lech Wałęsa, President Bill Clinton, Steven Spielberg, the Little Rock Nine, Doris Kearns Goodwin, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Prime Minister Tony Blair, President George W. Bush, David L. Rubenstein, Gary Sinise, Melody Hobson, Jim Reynolds, and now tonight's very deserving recipient, Jon Meacham. Relationships mattered to Abraham Lincoln. He often relied on his closest friends for guidance. In challenging times, he wrote, "The better part of one's life consists of friendships." John, you have countless friends in this room and colleagues who believe in you and your exceptional contributions to the historical canon and to the public understanding of American democracy. Here are just a handful who wish to pay tribute to you on this, your extra special night.
John, on behalf of our alma mater and all of your friends in Sewanee, congratulations on this great honor. We're proud of you and proud of the fact that an alumnus of the University of the South is being recognized with the Lincoln Leadership Prize. At a time when our nation struggles with intense divisiveness, you have pointed to President Lincoln as an example and inspiration of how, quoting you, progress can be made by fallible and fallen presidents and peoples, which in a fallible and fallen world should give us hope. So here's to that hope, and here's to you, Jon. We have one more voice from Sewanee who would like to offer congratulations.
Oh, Jon, congratulations on receiving this distinguished award from the Lincoln Presidential Foundation. I also presume to offer congratulations on behalf of Professor Herbert Wentz, another of your undergraduate professors and friends. We shared a belief in your powers of mind and heart, and in your capacity to explain your vision of God and the world in clear and persuasive prose. As a Sewanee undergraduate, you demonstrated again and again that you had important things to say, and that you could say them very well. In the fall of 1988, I was in my office reading final exams when I came to your essay on Homer's Iliad. You revealed in that essay the power to read an ancient work with comprehension and appreciation. Like President Lincoln, you had drawn lessons from the past and expressed their relevance to the present with notable eloquence and persuasiveness. Since then, you have consistently addressed crucial moments in Western history and worked to understand the great men who responded to those moments. And what to me is most admirable about your work is its capacity to use the lessons of history to explain and illuminate the present. Your vision has helped us all to grasp the outline of history in our own time and to try to respond to the moment in ways that make life good for your fellow citizens. Thank you, Jon, for your great work, and congratulations on this acknowledgement of your achievement and for perpetuating the spirit of Abraham Lincoln in your own love and concern for our republic.
Hi, everyone. Sorry to miss being with you. I'm a native of Illinois, and in my heart, a lifelong Illinoisan. I've always loved Abraham Lincoln, which goes back to when I was 7 years old, was taken by my parents to the Lincoln House in Springfield, and saw the chair that Lincoln read into his children. And I asked the guide, when Lincoln's boys misbehaved, did he spank them? And the guide said, no, can you believe it? Lincoln didn't believe in discipline. He let those brats run wild through this house. I heard that. Lincoln was the man for me. All I can tell you is that in certain important ways, Jon Meacham resembles Abraham Lincoln. Not only has he written probably the greatest book of our time on the great emancipator, but this is someone who has certain personal qualities in common with his subject. First of all, unlike Lincoln, Jon has been to some great schools, but I think his greatest education has been self-made. He loves to read, he loves to extract information from books. Number two, Jon is a person of amazingly high ethics and great religious feeling. That's something that, as he has helped us to understand, was very much present in Abraham Lincoln, his rising degree of religious commitment. And finally, Lincoln, as we all know, was someone who loved stories, loved jokes, loved to try to understand what human beings were like beneath the surface, understood that everyone is flawed. I would use exactly that language to describe my close friend of 30 years, Jon Meacham. So all I can say is congratulations to Jon. More than that, congratulations to the foundation. You've made an absolutely perfect choice. Wish I could be there. Have a great time.
Jon, it is a privilege to be a part of this tribute to you as the winner of the Lincoln Prize in History. This privilege is not simply because I cherish the colleagueship and friendship that we have been able to forge at the Washington National Cathedral, you as canon historian and me as canon theologian. But the privilege is also to be able to speak to your significant contribution through this book, And There Was Light, to who we are and who we can become, not as simply a nation, but most significantly as human beings. Lincoln is an historical figure who has intrigued me for many years. As you have said, he is the Mount Everest that at some point historians must climb. I think that more than historians must climb the Everest that is Lincoln. Theologians must climb the Lincoln Everest, and so too must anyone that aspires to live into their better selves, their better angels, as Lincoln would say. In this regard, your book is not primarily about how the president, during a divided time in this country, strivings to be the democracy it claims to be, how that president was able to preserve the Union. What is fascinating about your book is it's not primarily about the warring soul of the nation. Rather, your book is about the humanity of the we, the people of this nation. This humanity is about nothing less than the heart of who we are. It is about that transcendent sense of what is good and right to do that pushes, if not compels us to, in fact, do that which is right, that which is good. You, Jon, present Lincoln not as one who was trying solely to keep the nation intact, but in so doing, as one who was trying to keep his very humanity intact. As you have said in previous interviews, Lincoln represents, and I'm going to quote you, Jon, you say he represents those fallen, frail, and fallible people in the past who managed, however briefly but momentously, to transcend their limitations, to transcend their appetite, their ambition to do the right thing. And so it is that this book is timeless, Jon, as long as we as a people are not yet who we were created to be, good people who affirm in all that we do the equal and sacred personhood of others, thus never betraying theirs or our humanity. So, Jon, as much as this book, my friend, is a testament to who you are as a consummate historian, it is as well a testament to who you are as a man of faith. For it takes a man of faith to recognize that transcendent arc of our divine created selves that we are called to live up to, especially in most divided times. We don't have to be perfect, as you make clear that Lincoln was not perfect, but we do have to try. We have to try to be our best. We have to try to get on, as I like to say, the arc of justice and love that is the seed of our humanity. And so as we learn from a person like Lincoln, as we look at the ways in which he fell short of his own faith and defied his angels, we are compelled, as you have said, to ask how indeed we fall short and defy our better angels in this our time. This is what you have called the moral utility of history. And it is why the history you write, in the stories you tell of leaders such as Lincoln who struggled to be better, it is why that makes a book like And So There Was Light so significant, so timeless. So finally, Jon, the privilege of being a part of this tribute to you is not simply because of the book you have written, but because of the person you are. Whether we agree or disagree on various issues, one thing I have never doubted is that you, my friend, are a man of faith, always trying to live in to your better self. And in the process, you make those of us who are blessed to know you better. Thank you for allowing your faith and aspirations to be the window through which you access history. All who read your books are better for that. Congratulations, my friend. This is a well-deserved honor. I cannot wait to have the opportunity to congratulate you in person.
Hey, Jon, I want to congratulate you on receiving the 2024 Lincoln Leadership Prize. I remember the first time we met, and I was trying to play it cool, but as a history buff and an avid reader, I was a little awestruck. And now that we've been friends for a few years, it kind of pains me to admit that you are a great historian who brings modern insight and accessibility to the past, showing us why history is important and why we have to learn from studying it. Receiving an honor in the name of our shared hero, Abraham Lincoln, is so fitting, and I can't think of anyone who deserves it more. Faith and I wish you a wonderful evening of celebration and congratulations.
Well, kind of hard to beat that, isn't it? The Lincoln Leadership Prize is going to be presented this evening by Stephanie Ruhle. Stephanie is currently the host of MSNBC's The 11th Hour. She appears across all NBC News and MSNBC platforms as NBC News' senior business analyst, including NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt. She's on the Today Show, NBCNews.com, and Today.com. It's on the money. Ruhle is known for her business acumen, her hard-hitting style, her original reporting, and for bringing humanity to her news coverage. Tonight, we are honored to have Stephanie Ruhle with us to present her friend, Jon Meacham, with the prestigious Lincoln Leadership Prize Award. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephanie Ruhle.
Thank you so much. Tonight, I am simply here as Jon Meacham's friend. You were talking about relationships a few minutes ago. Mark Zuckerberg, the co-founder of Facebook, a few years ago, did a walking tour of all 50 states. And his takeaway at the end was that people can get information from anywhere. Information is meaningless. It's relationships that matter. When you trust the source, that's the person you will learn from, you will live with, you will grow with. That is Jon Meacham to almost every person in this room. And hopefully by the end of this night, it will be everyone in this room. When I think about what I admire about Jon, his optimism, his hopefulness, his faith, his decency, his dignity, his love of country and democracy. And that's what's sort of amazing, how his life and his work mirrors that of Abraham Lincoln. So it's so fitting for him to be awarded this prize. You know, just last week, I had the opportunity to interview Mitt Romney. He has this same hand on his desk in Washington. And we had this wide-ranging conversation, and I left feeling deeply sad because he is an extraordinary American. The last Republican presidential candidate before things turned in a very different direction, and he talked all about decency. He talked about family. And he said, you know, politicians come and go, you could have bad policies, they can be overturned. That's not a big deal. But when a country loses its character, when a country loses its moral compass, we're in trouble. And I left sad because Mitt Romney is going on to his next chapter. But then I was thinking about the week ahead, this night I was going to have with Jon, and I said, I'm not sad. Because maybe our leaders, maybe our rays of light, don't necessarily have to be our lawmakers. They don't necessarily have to be our CEOs. Every person in this room can be that ray of light. Jon often quotes Winston Churchill talking about that lantern that stumbles through the past. And all it takes is that one ray of light, because one ray of light, one candle, drowns out the dark. Jon, and the way that he writes, and the way that he teaches, is that ray of light. He doesn't teach us with ideology, he doesn't teach us with opinion, he teaches us with morality and history. That is a gift to all of us. When I think about what I admire about Jon's work, I think again to all the things that Mitt Romney was talking about. And Jon, this author, this historian, he's giving us that. I thought about talking about Jon tonight. I thought about my 15-year-old son and his Jesuit education, how he's thinking, how he's working towards living a life of service, how it might not be our lawmakers, and when we're watching them in the halls of Congress on the floor and the fights that they get in is deeply disappointing. But my son and his Jesuit school and his debate team and these unbelievable, thoughtful debates they have discussing world issues, that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited that we have leaders like Jon who understand that education is our greatest opportunity for social change, and Jon is educating us through the history he teaches us, through his writing. I believe in that next generation, people like my children who are going to carry that light. So I currently work in a business that unfortunately capitalizes on the dark. It's why I wanted to come here tonight, because we spend way too much time celebrating the dark, talking about the doers of bad, the pushers of misinformation, when what we should be doing is coming to ballrooms in Chicago and Springfield, Illinois, and honoring good people, living good lives, because when you add up all that goodness, the result is truly great. And my friend Jon Meacham is truly great. And I will tell you a surprising thing about Jon. He's only 54. How has he lived this life? How has he worked with, interviewed, met with every president since Ford, except Ronald Reagan, though he wrote a letter to Ronald Reagan when he was only 12 years old and got himself invited to the inauguration? When you think about Jon's body of work, right, you think, was he chopping down cherry trees with Washington? Was he bowling with Lincoln? But no, that gray hair is deceiving. When he should have been stealing Johnny Walker, he was working with, learning from George Herbert Walker Bush. He is an extraordinary man. And though his age is surprising, he's also a surprising guy. It was about a year and a half ago, I was in my house, and my husband came into my bedroom with a large yellow envelope with the word adult stamped on the front. And he said to me, "Stephanie, what did you order in the mail?" And I panicked because I didn't order anything in the mail. And I thought, my God, what has someone sent me? And after I panicked, my husband ripped open the envelope, and as my life flashed before me and I thought everything was blowing up in smoke, it was Jon's book on Abraham Lincoln that came from the adult nonfiction section. So after a really surprising evening, we sat and we read about Abraham Lincoln and his life's work, leading our nation at a dark time, a time so dark we were at war with ourselves, a time when we called upon our leaders to be the light. He was that light. And you know, Jon just hasn't had a fascination with Abraham Lincoln. He has loved politics and our country and power since he was a boy. His grandfather was a judge. Jon grew up in Chattanooga. In his backyard, he would find bullets from the Civil War era. He still has some on his desk. But it was that time, spending time with his grandfather in the mornings when he would meet with local lawyers and businessmen and politicians. Jon was drawn to and excited by politics and power, but he also saw the humanity in it, the human side. And I think that's what maybe is most interesting about the people Jon writes about, because he's not in awe of their power. He's an empathetic student, an empathetic writer. But unlike many people in power who believe they have divine power, who believe they are infallible, he doesn't see any man as being infallible. While he's led by faith, the men in power that he studies, that he's advised, that he's written about, he sees them as humans. And this, I think, is the most crucial time maybe in our lives, to see the humanity in others, people who seem that they are not like us, strangers. Those strangers are just friends we haven't met yet. We have to see the positive in others. Because many people, many organizations want to divide us, but it's our choice not to be divided. It's our choice to come together. We are complicated, exciting, nuanced creatures, so we shouldn't allow ourselves to be categorized. My friend Jon certainly isn't. He is a whole person. He's an extraordinary person. And I know he's been asked, if you were not a historian, what would you be? His answer is that he would be unhappy. And I can say, John, if you were not a historian, we would be unhappy too. Mwah. Congratulations. Oh, thank you.
For the hand.
John has terminal cancer. That was a eulogy.
That's right. So
Just kidding.
We're done. Okay. Thank you. All right. I don't know if y'all have ever been to an Episcopalian bar mitzvah, but you have now. Stephanie has started today interviewing Benjamin Netanyahu, which will air in about an hour and 40 minutes on MSNBC. So we're going to finish well in time. I want everyone to watch. Make sure you call Nielsen. But at 10 o'clock our time, every night, my friend Stephanie Rule bears witness at an hour of maximum danger for American democracy, for truth and accountability and reason. And I can't thank her enough for being here. Thank you. Yeah, and my funeral is going to be kind of a downer after this. Aaron, thank you. Mr. Wehmer, Carrie, thank you. The Presidential Foundation does remarkable work in what is clearly the most vital of arenas, the arena of public history and ethos in which we live, and try to remember who we've been in order to become who we ought to be. And your mission is essential. I commend you for pursuing it with courage and conviction, and like everybody else, urge you to give as much money as possible. So everyone's happy. So I was sitting there a few minutes ago, and I was thinking, yeah, maybe I am all these things. You know, maybe I am, and maybe they're just not quite, selling it. And as God will do, there was a moment of humility, and it was about 12 years ago now. I was on the Mall in Washington on my way to give my talk at that point about Andrew Jackson. And a woman ran up to me, which does not happen enough. Or ever, actually. And most women who would run up to me would have medical devices. So the whole thing is bad. Beschloss and I have a bet, by the way, at what point will books we write go straight to large print? Just for the demo. And this woman comes up to me and she says, "Oh my God, it's you." And I said, "Yes, Existentially speaking, that's hard to argue with." And she said, I loved your books. They've meant so much to me. Will you wait right here? I'm going to go buy your new book and have you sign it. Will you wait here? I said, "Yes, ma'am." And I stood there thinking, this is the way the world is supposed to be, right? Women are running up to me. They're buying the book. It was perfect. Hand to God, she brought back John Grisham's latest novel. So, whenever I think I am any of the things you have heard tonight, I remind myself that somewhere in America there's a woman with a forged copy of The Runaway Jury, right? I signed the damn thing. That's a true story. The second part is also true. At that point, I was writing the book about George Herbert Walker Bush. It took 17 years. It was supposed to be posthumous, but the son of a bitch wouldn't die. I'd bring it up. He'd say, "Not gonna do it." I was on my way to see the Bushes, and for some reason, it was just the three of us at lunch that day. Very unusual. Bush World, as you all know, was like a WASP Disneyland, right? The Oak Ridge Boys would be on the putting green. Billy Graham would be trying to make the Keurig work. Gorbachev would be there. I mean, the whole thing. And that happened once. But for some reason, it was just the three of us. And I told this story about being mistaken for Grisham. And I will confess to you, it was an entirely transparent attempt to get either the former president or the former first lady to say, "Oh, you're so much more important than John Grisham," right? That's what I wanted. I'd flicked the fly out on the stream. And Barbara Bush looks across the table in that inimitable way of hers and says, "Well, how do you think poor John Grisham would feel? He's a very handsome man." So It was a bad weekend. I am a product of all, like as Tennyson reminded us, I'm a product of all that I've met. I've been incredibly lucky. I went to an Episcopal Montessori as a child. It's redundant when you think about it. I went to a marvelous secondary school that managed to produce both Ted Turner and Pat Robertson. We've got everything covered. And then, of course, the University of the South. My friend Rob Perrigan is here. I don't think he was under oath when he made those comments, which is good. It's remarkable that I got out of it alive. My roommate in those days was a fellow from Lynchburg, Tennessee, named Jack Daniels. And so I thought the Gulf War had something to do with Destin. I had no idea. But it was a formative, remarkable education and unfolding experience. And I am the last survivor of what's called a daily newspaper. I don't know if you all heard of it. Some of you all may remember, but when I talk to students, I have to explain what that is. But encountering the complexity of history, of faith, of all human affairs was the best possible preparation for what I've been lucky enough to do. And I am the most fortunate person you can imagine. And so I'm deeply, deeply grateful. Let's talk about Lincoln for a minute. The talk he gave at the White House to the 166th Ohio Regiment on Monday, August 22nd, 1864, is not among his best-known speeches, but it should be. The day had begun as most of Lincoln's days began. He awakened in his bed in his suite in the southwest corner of the mansion, second floor. His eyes opened to light that came in through two large windows that looked out on the Potomac and on seceded Virginia. From this vantage point, he could see the unfinished Washington Monument, which was then standing only 156 out of a projected 500 feet. Lincoln kept what his aides called farm hours. He liked to rise early. With the help of his usher and valet, William Slade, the president would dress, usually in a black suit, white shirt, and what the Victorians called a stock. It was a permanently tied black bow tie that attached to a longer strip that attached behind his neck. The reason his bow tie is always so rakishly the same way is because it was a clip-on. That may be the biggest news item in my book. Jay Press wrote me and wanted to sponsor that part. In his remarks to the 166th Ohio on that August day, Lincoln said this: "The war was being fought in order that each of you may have, through this free government, an open field and a fair chance." An open field and a fair chance. Sadly, it is safe to say that the capacity of the United States to preserve a free government, an open field, and a fair chance under the rule of law is again in jeopardy. You and I are living in what is arguably the most perilous moment for our way of life since 1860, when a large swath of the country put its own predominance and its own prejudices ahead, over and above the obligations of union. I want to be very clear, this is not a partisan point. I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat. I try to see things clearly, and here, for what it's worth, is what I see. Our Capitol and our Constitution have been stormed. Too many of us have chosen, and it is a choice, to outsource our judgment to a machinery of perpetual conspiratorial conflict that depicts those with different views of policy not as fellow citizens, but as enemies and even as subhuman. And that way, madness lies. Our disputes are too often not about degree, but about kind, not about solutions, but about whether discernible problems even exist at all if the leader of one's own party says not to believe the evidence of our own eyes. These are the facts of the hour. It's also a fact, a consoling one, that this can change and change quickly if enough of us choose to change it. if enough of us stop tweeting and start thinking, if enough of us contemplate rather than reflexively condemn, if enough of us choose to heed the better angels of our nature instead of surrendering to our most primal instincts. And making that proper choice can usefully begin, no surprise to you all, with a contemplation of Abraham Lincoln. His ancient faith, he said, taught him that all men are created equal. And that ancient faith is, as St. Augustine said, ever ancient, yet also ever new. It animates the heart of democracy. If appetite is all, then autocracy of some sort and condition will be the result. Democracy, on the other hand, is a life lived in the recognition that we must give as well as take. We have to see each other as neighbors and not as enemies. And that's a counterintuitive point. Since the third chapter of Genesis, we have been busy taking rather than giving. If we all already loved our neighbors, Leviticus and Jesus wouldn't have had to have brought it up, right? Think about it. There's always some backstory behind a commandment. Somebody in ancient Israel was sleeping with a goat. Because why would they say don't sleep with goats? Right? You don't outlaw something that's not happening. You don't urge something. You didn't have that on your bingo card. You know who would have loved that is George W. Go, it's pretty funny. That's not bad. I'm very big in assisted living facilities. I do this routine. If we don't see each other as neighbors, it doesn't work. And I know I begin to sound a little like Mr. Rogers there, which, if you'll allow me one quick story, about a very small category called great tweets. It's like French military victories in the 20th century. You know, it won't take long. About 8 months ago, someone tweeted out that if Doris Kearns Goodwin and Mr. Rogers had had a one-night stand, I would have resulted. And I loved it. Doris, to be honest, was kind of pissed off. So she learned how to use her cell phone. She called. And she said, couldn't Mr. Rogers and I have fallen in love and you were the fruit of our union? I said, no, sweetheart. He picked you up in the C-SPAN bar. That's how this happened. It's a choice. Democracy or autocracy. It's not just a political choice, it's a human choice, but a human choice is a political choice because politics and history are not clinical. They are entirely human. We have to assent to a spirit of the laws. You can't write a law to cover everything. There have to be people with dispositions of heart and mind who are willing to accept a suppression of their momentary desires in order to keep a broader enterprise going. That's what American democracy is. And the Civil War era is the most illuminating hour in which Americans of ages past struggle to decide between democracy and autocracy. And if you think about it, in that fiery trial, we faced a fundamental question. Was constitutional democracy to be our standard, or would a race-based aristocracy long endure? I would suggest to you, as adherents and students of Lincoln, that a key Lincoln lesson for our time is his defense and definition of American democracy. We know he understood this great task to be central, for he knew that if democracy failed here, it would likely fail everywhere. And most important, perhaps, he saw politics not only as a mediation of interests, but as a moral affair. How we see each other is a moral choice. White Southerners from my part of the world dreamed of a slave empire headquartered in the American South, but stretching to Cuba, Mexico, Central and South America. We know where the border is, but they kept moving that sucker in the 19th century, didn't they? The Golden Circle was going to have Havana in the middle of it. Slavery was not going to just be a phenomena in the Southeastern Conference. They wanted to move south, to broaden this. That white-dominated new nation, a Charleston newspaper wrote, would ensure slaveholders a great destiny. But to Lincoln, that thinking could not stand. He pursued emancipation at existential political peril. He refused to compromise in the secession winter. He rejected advice not to fortify Fort Sumter. And he refused to give up emancipation as the price of his reelection in 1864, running on a platform that endorsed an abolition amendment. For Lincoln, as I pray for us, a world in which power was all, in which the assertion of a singular will trumped all, in which brute force dictated all, was not moral but immoral, not democratic but autocratic, not just but unjust. On the Tuesday after the Monday, which he addressed the 166th Ohio, Lincoln, who expected to lose in November, this is before Atlanta had fallen, wrote this: "This morning, as for some days past, it seems exceedingly probable that this administration will not be reelected. Then it will be my duty to so cooperate with the President-elect as to save the Union between the election and the inauguration. It will be my duty. It will be my duty." So what was Lincoln's duty as he saw it? To follow the law, to accept defeat if defeat was to be his fate, to do what every other American president in history, save one, has done: peacefully accept the will of the people, effect the transfer of power, and preserve the experiment in democracy. For that duty, that presidential duty, is what makes America America. The rule not of men, but of laws. The acceptance of a constitutional covenant that puts the country above self, the common good above personal victory or personal loss, the preservation of the Union above the passions of the moment. The alternative is insurrection, chaos, and the reign of appetite without restriction and without peace. As Lincoln told the Congress in 1862, what they did at that time and what we do now will be remembered down to the latest generation. And what we do in the present crisis, the choices we make, the path we choose, will determine whether the constitutional experiment for which men have died, from Lexington and Concord to Gettysburg to the civil rights movement in the South to Omaha Beach, whether that blood was spilled for an experiment and a project that long endured, or that ended when enough of us chose not to remember what it was and what it is that should be our ancient faith. If we choose the right path, and it is up to us, we haven't been invaded by aliens, we choose to be moved by appeals to our baser instincts, so therefore we can choose not to be. If we make that right choice, we will do so not least because of Abraham Lincoln. For the America of the 1860s made the right choice. They took the right path. And the reassuring and terrifying thing is that they were just like us. They were flawed and imperfect and sinful and self-satisfied. They were torn between knowing what was right and doing what was convenient. And just enough of them at just the right moment chose the right path. And that history should give us hope. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you so much. My hand, oh yeah. We'll move the hand moves. Thank you.
There is almost nothing to say after that. It was marvelous. To all of you, we thank you for joining us tonight. We thank you for your generosity to the foundation. We thank you for believing in the kinds of things that Abraham Lincoln believed in. As a special parting gift of the foundation, please receive an autographed copy of Jon Meacham's latest book, And There Was Light, available in the lobby as you exit. Congratulations to tonight's honorees. Ed Wehmer, Jon Meacham, another round of applause. Have a wonderful night.